Hello there, and welcome to my map walkthrough for the level Sanctuary. My name is Jacob Antonucci, and in this video I will go over some of the development process while talking mainly about the ideas behind the design, combined with showing highlights from the level. This video will be more focused on the level in its final state. If you want to get an insight on my process, you can check out both my workflow under this video, while the process and design philosophies are fleshed out in the design introspection at the top of the page. With Sanctuary being the first level in the game, it has a lot of responsibilities towards the player, and has therefore been both worked and iterated on the most. Through Sanctuary, the player is introduced to every mechanic present in the game, and they therefore had to be introduced in a rising order to show the player the freedom that comes with it. The first mechanic to be introduced is the power jump, and by reaching this blockade early on in the level, the player must use the ability to progress. By repeating the power jump 3 times, the player gets a good insight in the ability at hand. Reaching the top, the player is faced with a wide gap between him and the next platform. In order to reach it, he must use the power leap. I chose to introduce both of the jump mechanics first, as I wanted these to be second nature by the time the player unlocked the grapple beam. By introducing the grapple first, players would be overwhelmed by the mechanic, ignoring abilities learned afterwards. Unlocking the grapple beam, the player is faced with a section lacking difficulty. This is to ease the experience, letting the player experiment without punishment. The grapple beam is all about keeping momentum and speed, and by reaching the single momentum section, the challenge of the grappling beam will be introduced. As the grapple strikes a surface, it will drag the player towards it, and if not releasing at the right time, the player will smash into the object, losing momentum, and is not likely to pass. This early on, all separate mechanics have already been introduced. By now, the player will learn how to combine these mechanics in order to find creative solutions to each section. First up is the power jump, combined with the grappling beam. Followed by power leap combined with the grappling beam.
Maybe if I combine the jump and the hook.
Lastly, the player is taught that by grappling moving objects, they will follow along. After several iterations, this order of introduction was the most effective, as players would start to experiment freely, finding creative solutions to different sections.
As if I could fly.
After a couple of sections, I want the player to relax. Diverging sections with small areas that are meant only for feeling, visuals, and narrative balances the pacing. During these sections, the player progresses without any effort, heightening the player's feeling of competence. By using landmarks such as the blue carvings on the cave walls, players could anchor their position, using a point of reference to build a sense of direction. I aimed at implementing as much verticality as possible, as it conveys a stronger feeling of speed and momentum. Falling downwards is far more exhilarating than flying forward, and flying upwards is more of an accomplishment. I chose to be very generous with checkpoints, as a death already strips the player of his momentum and speed. And as the feeling of momentum and progression comes in moving forward and progressing, there's no need to retread old ground.
I couldn't help but to think that I was closing in on something. But what could that something be? I found a second.
Delving into the last part of the level, the player acquires an upgrade for the grappling beam. He can now grapple twice mid-air, allowing for more challenging sections. Finding the right order for platforming sections in terms of difficulty was a big part of my process. Sections like the one before and what you see now, requiring precise aiming in a circular movement, held the highest difficulties during playtests. By placing these at the far end of the level, the player had gathered just the right amount of experience for their capabilities to meet the challenge, creating that moment of flow.
Potential of this suit. Uncle Fred sure knew his way around inventions.
And that concludes my walkthrough. My name is Jacopo Antonucci, and thank you for listening.